Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Democrats and the Democratic Party overall finally gets good news after Pennsylvania's election victory. They've been struggling for a while now and for a very long time, but they finally get a little bit of a break. This is not obviously a huge win, but it still is a major win in terms of what can happen in the future. So last Tuesday, earlier this week, Pennsylvania had a state legislature special election for two Pennsylvania districts. District number 36 for the special election and the 35th district in the state house and the state senate. So the house and the senate of the state of Pennsylvania. And as we all know, Pennsylvania is a battleground state. It is what got Donald Trump elected in 2024. So the fact that the Democrats overperformed expectations, as they almost always do in off-year elections, in elections that nobody really cares about, and there was low turnout, is because Republicans time and time again never show up to the polls when there's not a big election. When there's an off-year election, Republicans don't typically normally show up. But because this is in Pennsylvania, a state that is very important, it goes to show you that, and it is, people are expecting Pennsylvania to shift towards the right in the future. Maybe Democrats do have hope. And I'm going to explain to you why this is important to you, why you should, care about this, because not a lot of people focused on this election, and why it is good news for the Democratic Party. But before we get started, make sure you guys are subscribed, click the bell so you don't miss all my content, press the like button, share this video as we are approaching 6,000 subscribers. If you're interested, don't forget we have memberships. You can find the links to that in the description section. So the Democratic Party finally got good news after a while, a long time of struggling for the past probably like a couple years now, actually. So James Malone defeated Josh Parsons, his Republican opponent, in Pennsylvania's 36th district for the state Senate special election, as you can see right here. And turnout was at 53,900 votes, almost 54,000 votes total reporting. Over 95% of the estimated vote share is in, according to AP. The Democrat has flipped. Get this is very important. The Democrat James Malone has flipped a Trump plus 15% district, which is why it is very important. He flipped it by 0.9%, as you can see right here, getting exactly 50% of the overall vote. To his Republican opponent, Josh Parsons, 49.11%. James Malone has got 26,951 votes to Josh Parsons' 26,469 votes. An extremely tight race. And you scroll down here, the State House, District 35. Dan Gunor has defeated his Republican opponent, Charles Davis, and keep in mind, he overperformed. This is why this is important for the future for Democrats, because he overperformed Kamala Harris by a margin of about 15 points, you guys. He overperformed Kamala Harris in this district by 15 points. That's for the state house. And then you go back to the state senate race in Pennsylvania. James Malone flipped a Trump plus 15 district. So you can see the margins are similar, 15 and 15, because, Don Gunor, overperformed Kamala Harris by 15 in that district. And then James Malone flipped a Trump plus 15 district. That goes to show you the shifts and the trends in these specific elections goes, in favor of the Democratic Party. And it goes to show you that maybe they do have a future, because if you take a look at the Democratic Party's overall favorability rating, approval rating of their party, on average, according to RCP, it's below 32%, at 31.9 in terms of favorability rating, nearly in the 20s. So that's not where they want to be. They're extremely underwater as a party as a whole. So they're unfavorable by 25.5 points. That's the spread. That is a disaster for the Democrats, which is why this, offers some relief for them. These off-year elections, these special elections for Pennsylvania. And then they have a unfavorability rating, disapproval rating of 57.3%. That is very, very high. And their favorability rating, not only are they very disapproved, but their favorability rating is almost in the 20s, which is extremely low. Now, it depends on what would you rather have. Would you rather have recency or, polls, collected together as a whole? Because if you take a look at recency, the latest poll from The Economist and YouGov, which typically leans Democrat favor, Democratic biasy, overestimates Democratic support time and time again. This poll was conducted from March 22nd to the 25th, with 1,440 registered voters say the Democratic Party is unfavorable by 20 points in the negatives underwater, with a favorability rating of 39, as you can see right here, which is a little bit better than the other polls, a little bit, positive for Democrats, and an unfavorable rating of 59, which is actually even worse than when you just simply gather up all these polls and add them all together. But if you take a look at polls individually, it becomes even worse for the Democrats. NBC News, with 1,000 registered voters, say the Democratic Party's favorability rating is by 27%. That is a disaster. That is the lowest out of all these polls, and they're unfavorable by 55%. That's a spread of 28% points under water. And if these are the real numbers, which it looks like they very well are, the Democrats don't have a candidate that can get them, out of the water. Maybe they will as they get closer to 2028, which is what they're hoping for. Maybe it will be Josh Shapiro. Maybe Bernie Sanders would come out of, retirement. Well, he's not retired, but, he's extremely old. But maybe, somehow Bernie Sanders does something good for once. I mean, he is doing rallies, and a lot of people are showing up, which is also good news for the Democratic Party's future. Like, roughly, they get like 30 to 40,000 people showing up to the rallies, and he's done some with AOC in Denver, Wisconsin, Arizona, I believe Colorado as well, and a lot of people are showing up. So it's not like because the Democratic Party is unfavorable, the Republicans are always going to win. The Democrats will never, ever win again. That's what the Republicans hope. But, you get these rumors all the time when it's a one party that's in heavy control. For example, during the Obama era, everyone is saying, Republicans will never, ever win again. And then, there comes Donald Trump, the Republican Party's savior. And then same thing goes for right now. History repeats itself. The Democratic Party looks like they're never going to win again. Maybe they can get a candidate to save them in 2028, whether that's a Josh Shapiro, a Bernie Sanders, who's doing a tremendous amount of rallies right now, and a lot of people are showing up. Who knows? And it's definitely not going to be someone like AOC. I can tell you that right now. So they need someone more moderate, obviously, more, less establishment, populist. A populist Democrat will get them over the finish line in 2028. But let's not move over that far ahead. Let's focus on the 2025 off-year governor elections in Virginia and New Jersey, and also the 2026 Senate midterms as well. Now, it is true that states' special elections don't really typically mean anything. For example, Democrats did good in the 2023, off-year elections, and guess what? They got trounced a year later. A year later, they lost to the 2024 general election. So that goes to show you, it is literal proof that maybe these off-year elections don't really typically mean much, since Republicans don't generally turn out in these elections. They only turn out in general elections, not really off-year or midterms as well, which is why the Democrats can possibly do well in the midterms, but the maps does not look favorable for them. Let's quickly take a look at Donald Trump's job approval rating on the RCP average when you add all these polls together. He's underwater by a net negative 0.8%. So it's pretty much a tie. His approval rating is exactly 48 points to his disapproval rating of 48.8%. Take a look at the latest poll from March 22nd to the 25th from the same pollster, Economist and YouGov. Donald Trump's approval rating at 48%, which majority of the polls can agree, and his disapproval ratings is at 50%. So he is falling off a little bit. And I mean, if you take a look at his, job approval rating on some of these issues like the economy, foreign policy, immigration, inflation, what's going on with, Israel and stuff, Gaza, whatever, that conflict. If his approval rating continues to drop for those aspects, the Democrats could potentially have a better year in 2026, even though I expect Republicans to retain control of the House, Senate. Maybe Democrats have a better chance of actually flipping the House. So that's their hope, the House in 2026, because they're more than likely not going to win. The Senate, based on how the map is looking like, because I can show you that they're most likely not going to win the Senate in 2026. So their hope is for the House to get relief, a little break of being crushed for these past years, and then when 2028 comes by, they can finally get that candidate to save them. In my opinion, it should be Josh Shapiro. If they elect someone else, they could screw up. So I can show you how these these special elections in Pennsylvania, a very important state, could mean good signs for Democrats in the midterms, because James Malone flipped a Trump plus 15 district, and he won it by 0.9%. And then you have Dan Ganor, who overperformed Kamala Harris by 15 points. So maybe that goes to show you that the Democrats should run a better candidate than Kamala Harris, and they can easily win back Pennsylvania, in the future, maybe in 2028. Because obviously they're not going to have a 2026 Senate race in Pennsylvania, but they will for the governors. But, state special elections don't really correlate with governor races, more so the Senate, I would say. So let's just say, in a scenario, Brian Kemp decides not to run for Georgia's Senate race. That means Jon Ossoff likely has a good chance of winning. If Republicans nominate a jabroni type of candidate, a candidate that's very weak, just like how they did in 2020, which is how Jon Ossoff first got elected in his special Senate race, then I think he's a very strong candidate. And he won last time by under percentage point. It's not going to be a very easy race. But I think if Brian Kemp doesn't run, I think that's a very high chance of probability of happening. Then Democrats hold on to their Georgia seat. In fact, I think the state is shifting further towards the left. Donald Trump barely won it by just 2 points. I think Georgia's getting bluer, so Democrats should have hope in that state. And North Carolina, I believe, is it Roy Cooper or someone like that? If he doesn't run, or if he does, we don't really know just yet. But I think Democrats also do have a decent chance in North Carolina. This state loves ticket splitting. They just elected a Democratic governor by about 14 points. I know the candidate Mark Robinson was very weak, but it goes to show you that Democrats do have a presence in the state of North Carolina. So let's just say they get this. I think they very well can in the 2026 midterms. And then Mike Rogers, obviously, is probably going to be the Republican nominee for Michigan's Senate race. Pete Buttigieg announced he's not going to run because he's most likely going to lose. He realized that. So if the Democrats run a candidate at least better than Pete Buttigieg, then maybe they can hang on to Michigan's Senate race. It's not a guarantee. Mike Rogers is a strong Republican candidate. Almost beat Alyssa Slotkin in 2024. He actually almost won. He only lost by 0.3%. And then up in Maine, you have Susan Collins on the Republican side. Polls time and time again show she's going to lose. She ends up winning somehow. Maybe 2026 can be the time where Democrats finally, unseat her for the first time. So she would lose by a very close amount. Doesn't matter. Republicans still win 51-49. But it's a step in the right direction for Democrats. This is the Democrats' best case scenario in the 2026 Senate race for the midterms. I know, not good news for them, but I mean it's a step in the right direction. If they manage to keep Georgia blue, North Carolina blue, Michigan blue, and flip Maine, I think it's a step in the right direction, even though they won't take control. Because if they take control in the House and make this the exact map, I think that will be a good performance for them, because this is the best they can do in the Senate. The map is very unfavorable for them and heavily favored for Republicans. And then lastly, before we end off this video, I want to cover the 2025 off-year elections for Virginia and New Jersey's governor's race special elections. This actually happened in 2021 when Glenn Youngkin won, surprisingly, and he won by about 1% or whatever. And the New Jersey was actually surprisingly close, which is how we knew that 2024 would be competitive in this state on the general level. Harris only won it by 5 points. But I think that if Donald Trump, his approval rating continues to pivot down, and there's a drop approval rating on some of these issues like the economy, inflation, immigration, which the border, his approval rating on the immigration is actually pretty high right now. But if the others continue to drop, which it looks like they could, and his approval rating continues to fall, which it looks like it is going to, then I think because Glenn Youngkin is obviously term limited, he's not going to run, I think Democrats have a chance. Abigail Spansberger is a Democrat nominee, probably going up against Winsome Sears. She's the current lieutenant governor in this state. I think Winsome Sears obviously would overperform Donald Trump. Obviously, she won in this state. Why wouldn't she? Because Virginia does not like MAGA. They like more of establishment type of candidates, which is why I believe George W. Bush won this state. So, with that being said, Winsome Sears definitely has a chance of winning this. And I know it's early on, but it's going to happen, I believe, in November of 2025, just several months out from this video. Polls are suggesting, the latest one so far, that the Democrat Abigail Smansberger is looking like she's going to narrowly defeat Winsome Sears, the Republican nominee. So I think Democrats could potentially win Virginia on the, win it back on the governorship level. But it's going to be close no matter what. And then you have the state of New Jersey. Republicans came within 3% of winning the state back in 2021 on the governorship. So maybe Republicans could flip it. It's not a long shot. It very well can happen. But I think if you see this pushback on the Trump administration from Democrats, from moderates, that, see authoritarianism in this current administration, and you see numbers of protests, I think that's what can get Democrats elected. And that's exactly what this special election in Pennsylvania for the State House and State Senate from these two districts, 36 and 35, from last Tuesday, goes to show you that maybe Democrats do have a future, despite their approval almost below 30 points, actually. Maybe they do have some good news. But this typically does not mean much. I just want to be honest. It doesn't really mean much. But the fact that James Malone flipped a Trump plus 15 district, and the fact that Dan Gnor overperformed Harris by 15 points goes to show you that maybe they just need a better candidate on the general level. Democrats do have hope. So that's a summary of this video. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. One last final reminder is to subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss all my content, press the like button, share this video. Don't forget we have memberships. If you're interested, you can find a link to that in the description section. That's pretty much it. Thank you everyone for watching.